Grizz Nation, welcome back from a nice long break. The Grizzlies are back in action tonight in Philadelphia, taking on the Sixers, 6:30 tip-off Central Time. Joining me from Philadelphia is my good friend, Lauren Rosen. Lauren, thank you for coming on. Are you ready?
I'm so ready, Kelcey. Thank you for having me. I don't want to let Grizz Nation down, so I'm going to give you my best.
Did you have a good break?
I had the best break. You had a better break because you got to see all the action up close and personal. I know this is your thing. I don't want to take over the interview.
I didn't have a break, Lauren.
Okay, well, but you got to see the action. You know what I mean? Like you were in the thick of it. You got to see Mac McClung win the dunk contest, and I will never be able to say that I saw that. So I'm jealous.
Oh yeah, he played for the
your
G League team yesterday, right?
He signed a two-way a couple days before the dunk contest. And then last night he played in Delaware with the Blue Coats again. And there were a lot of people there. Folks were really excited to see the Mac McClung show. And I'm going to try to check it out tomorrow night. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
Okay, fun. And then there was a whole bunch of other guys at the All-Star game that are playing here today. You like that transition? Jaren, Joel. Let's talk about it because this is going to be a fun matchup because last time these two teams played, the Grizzlies won by 8, despite Joel Embiid's 35-point performance. And it was a good one. Jaren came by for more than 50 points. There was a whole lot of bench points from both teams, but it was the Jaren Jackson Jr. block in the fourth quarter on Joel Embiid that kind of sealed the deal for this team. So now they're rematching. They don't have Steven Adams tonight. He's still out. The Grizzlies also don't have Luke Kennard. He's out on a non-COVID related illness. However, Lauren, there's no injuries to report for the Sixers. And in fact, they have guys that didn't make the trip to Memphis last time.
Exactly. So as I start to think about this matchup, first of all, love playing the Grizzlies, love the energy that the Grizzlies bring. When I think about other teams around the league that I adore watching, the Grizzlies are at the top of my list. I'm not even joking. Like I'm a huge Grizzlies fan. The style, the speed, the players that you guys have, like so exciting, such a fan. So anytime that these two teams play, I'm excited, and they've given us a lot to be excited about in their last two matchups. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but my favorite game of last season was the last time the Grizzlies came to Philadelphia. But like you said, the last time these two met was earlier this season in Memphis. The Sixers, of course, saw what they usually see from Joel Embiid in a 35-point double-double that's become so routine for him, but they didn't have James Harden or Tyrese Maxey in that matchup. And that's sort of been the storyline for these Sixers all year, is sort of survive these injuries and then figure out how to get it together over these last couple of months. And it seems like they've been figuring some good things out, but they had a really slow start to the season in terms of continuity. And that very much affected that trip that included the last time that these two teams faced off. So looking forward to seeing the guards sort of face off against one another. Obviously, you guys have a couple of the best in the league. I like to think that the Sixers do as well. So that could be an exciting time to be sure.
Yeah. So obviously when you talk about guards, Ja Morant is the first one that comes up to your mind. He has scored 20 or more points in 19 consecutive games. That is the second time in franchise history, or like the second longest streak in franchise history, only behind himself last year with 22 games. So obviously we're expecting another big game off of the All-Star game from Ja Morant. But let's just say, Lauren, that Grizzlies fans were somehow busy the last time that the Sixers came here and played, and they just don't remember some of the Sixers guys. Walk me through who the Sixers have, because they have a deep lineup. Like they have guys that can score.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So Joel Embiid, obviously the headliner for this team, second in the NBA in scoring coming out of the break, led the NBA in scoring for a lot of the break. Obviously this year has been a historic season for so many scorers, but Joel included. And it's just been a pleasure to watch. Tyrese Maxey, one of our other biggest names on this team, often says that when Joel doesn't score 30 or 40 points, they sort of look around and they're like, where's Joel? What's happening here?
40 points.
And they want to not take that feeling for granted. So that's been the theme of what it's like to play with Joel this year. James Harden is having a historic season in terms of sharing the basketball, leading the NBA in assists at this point. I think he should have been at All-Star weekend, but I am biased, of course. And so seeing the two of them sort of figure out what their two-man game looks like, the two of them in the pick and roll, extremely dominant. Obviously, when you have a scorer like Joel, a sharer like James, who also, by the way, happens to be one of the better scorers that the NBA has ever seen, there's a huge amount of potential. And like I said earlier, now seeing them healthy together has been such a pleasure. Tyrese, of course, sort of an extra head on a three-headed monster that the Sixers have thrown out there. He's been coming off the bench over the last couple of months and doing a really great job. Tyrese is just 22. A lot has been asked of him in his few years as a Sixer. This is just his third, but last year stepping into the starting lineup after not really playing a ton of regular minutes as a rookie. This year starting, coming off the bench, being a sixth man, being a first option when the other guys are hurt. It's been really cool to see him sort of adapt on the fly. And again, anytime that we can run out a healthy lineup, you know that you're still, this is all without discussing Tobias Harris, who's been one of the most consistent scorers in the NBA really over the last decade or so. And he's been just such a leader and a force for this team all along. That's all without mentioning your favorite, DeAnthony Melton, or maybe I don't want to say your favorite, but a Grizzlies fan favorite in DeAnthony Melton, who's also brought so much on both ends of the floor for this team, without mentioning Jalen McDaniels, who's the Sixers, or not the newest Sixer anymore, but one of the newer Sixers on this roster after the trade deadline. So there's a lot of pieces. And I think a lot of this last leg of the season for this team is figuring out how to use them all together, just because they got a little bit of a later start being able to do so early in the season when they were sort of taking turns being hurt, missing time. And during that time, the Shake Miltons of the world were fantastic. That's a name that I haven't said as much as I'd like to lately or on this call, but there are a lot of options for this team. So like you said, when they're healthy, it's about figuring out how to use those options together. And I think tonight will be an interesting, especially after a long layoff, an interesting way to see how those pieces come together.
So a lot of that might have to do with where they are in terms of rating throughout the NBA. And I preface this just by saying, I was looking at kind of like the Grizzlies, for example, lead in points in the paint. And I was looking at the Sixers and I'm like, oh, they got Joel Embiid. They're 21st though. Like, and it doesn't seem like that would be like where they should be. You know what I mean? You look at this team and you're like, I feel like the rankings don't quite do this roster justice, or it has a lot to do with their health, I guess. Cause I was also looking at, rebounds. They sit at 28th right now in reboundings. And you're like, you have one of the most dominant bigs in the entire league. The Grizzlies second right now. A lot of that has to do with Steven Adams, who obviously is out, but JJ as well. But the thing that caught me when I was looking at the disparities in all of this was the defensive rating. Both these teams top 10 in defensive rating, 6 and 3. Is tonight just going to be a battle of good defenses and who can play a better offensive game?
I mean, look, after that All-Star game, one would certainly hope so, but sorry, had to just get it in there. A little defense. No, yeah. I mean, look, the defensive potential on both teams is obviously huge. The rebounding thing is interesting. That's something that the guys have talked about over practice yesterday and then shoot around this morning. The Sixers, when they rebound well, are really hard to beat. I think, I have to check, but I think they're still 19-1 in games in which they out-rebound the other team.
Makes sense.
But that also means they've only done it 20 times, right? So in order to be a great team, in order to win in the playoffs, that's something that they want to improve upon. But I think you said it. I'm excited about a defensive matchup. We saw a really good one again against these two teams last season. A somewhat good one in the first game of the season. You mentioned Jaren was sort of a showstopper in that one. But yeah, defensive matchup, some of the best scorers in the league, 2 of the top 8, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of scorers in the NBA. So again, when these two teams can match up, I know you guys aren't fully healthy, but mostly healthfully, I just get really excited. I can't wait.
I mean, you have superstars matching up against each other. You have to be excited for it. Really quick before we go, Lauren, just give me one single matchup that you are excited to watch tonight.
Well, so I'm going to this is cheating, but I teased it at the beginning. I'm going to go back to last season when these two teams last played in Philadelphia. It was at the end of January. Ja Morant and Tyrese Maxey, 37 and 33 points apiece, respectively, went back and forth all night. Both teams played well. Both teams had great stretches in that game. The Sixers ultimately came out on top in overtime. You guys got us back though a couple months ago, so all is well. But that to me was it was a coming out party, I think, for Tyrese Maxey in that situation. It was also an opportunity for Philadelphia fans to watch Ja Morant because they really haven't seen him at the height of his powers. Tyrese, of course, has been coming off the bench, likely will do so tonight once again, but I hope to see the two of them on the court together for as many minutes as possible. Tyrese is still hovering in that 30-minute range, even when he comes off the bench. So expect to see the two of them go back and forth at least a little bit tonight. And basketball fans around the world can rejoice because that'll be a lot of fun.
Thank you, Lauren. That is going to be so exciting. Seriously, thank you for your time today. You are awesome. And let's hope for another really great game tonight, right?
Fingers crossed, man. Last time, I feel like I've hyped it up now so much, but last time these two teams played in that arena, it literally is that way. It was so much fun. So we'll hope to see another one tonight. And Kelcey, thank you for having me.
Of course, Grizzlies fans. The game tips off at 6:30, remember, so it is a little bit earlier than normal because They're over there in the East Coast. 6:30 Central Time. You can watch it on Bally Sports Southeast and Bally Sports Plus app.